Yo, a single game of chess can branch into more possible outcomes than there are atoms in the entire observable universe. Not close, not almost, more. 64 squares, 32 pieces, and somehow that tiny board holds a number bigger than everything physically real. Scientists put the number of possible chess games at around 10 to the 120th power. The atoms in the observable universe, about 10 to the 80th. That's not double, not 1,000 times more. It's a gap so massive your brain can't actually picture it, and that's just where we're starting. I've got 15 facts lined up for you today, all real, all verified, and every single one weirder than the last. One of them is so wild you're gonna swear I made it up. I didn't. Stick with me. These get stranger as we go, not weaker. We start with numbers that break your head, then honey that never rots, planets with backwards clocks, and by the back half there's a fact about a creature that can undo its own aging. That one changes how you think about dying. Let's start with something sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now that basically cannot die. Honey. Real honey, left alone, does not spoil. Not in a year, not in a decade. Archaeologists have pulled honey out of ancient tombs, still soft, still golden, still safe to eat. No preservatives, no refrigeration. Just bees doing something borderline supernatural 3,000 years ago. I'm not exaggerating that number either. In the 1820s, explorers digging through Egyptian tombs found sealed jars of honey buried alongside pharaohs, some dating back roughly 3,000 years. When they cracked them open, the honey hadn't fermented, hadn't molded, hadn't turned. People actually tasted it. 3 millennia sealed in clay, and it was still, technically, breakfast. Here's the actual science, because it's not magic. Honey has almost no water in it, so bacteria can't survive long enough to grow. It's also naturally acidic, and bees add an enzyme that creates trace amounts of hydrogen peroxide while they make it. Basically, bees accidentally invented a food that's hostile to every organism that would normally rot it. Now let's leave the kitchen and go to Venus, because Venus runs on a clock that makes 0 sense. On Venus, a single day, meaning one full spin on its axis, takes longer to complete than one entire trip around the sun. Read that again. The day is longer than the year. That's not a typo, that's just how weird that planet spins. Here's the breakdown. Venus takes about 243 Earth days to rotate once on its axis. That's painfully slow, but it only takes around 225 Earth days to complete a full orbit around the sun, so its day beats its year by nearly 20 days. It's also spinning backwards compared to almost every other planet, just to make things weirder. Imagine being born on Venus and not making it to your own birthday before the sun rises for the first time. You'd celebrate a full year of your life while the sun was still technically stuck on the same day it started. No sunrise, no sunset, just one impossibly long stretch of daylight or darkness rolling on longer than your entire orbit. And that right there should mess with you a little. We treat the 24-hour clock like it's some universal law carved into reality. It's not. It's just Earth's personal setting, nothing more. Out there, on other worlds, a day barely means anything. Every planet is running its own clock, and ours just happens to be the one we're stuck inside. Let's talk about octopuses, because their bodies are running on rules that don't apply to basically anything else. An octopus has 3 hearts, not one, and its blood isn't red, it's blue, because instead of iron carrying the oxygen like ours does, octopus blood uses copper. Blue blood, 3 hearts, and we haven't even gotten to the weird part yet. Here's the weird part. 2 of those 3 hearts exist just to pump blood past the gills. The third handles the rest of the body. But the second an octopus starts swimming, those 2 gill hearts actually stop beating. That's why octopuses hate swimming and would rather crawl. Swimming is, quite literally, exhausting on a cellular level for them. Speaking of things hiding in your kitchen, bananas are mildly radioactive. Not enough to hurt you, not even close. But it's real, measurable radioactivity coming from a piece of fruit sitting in a bowl on your counter. Scientists actually use bananas as a casual reference point for radiation exposure because the effect is so tiny and so consistent. Bananas are loaded with potassium, and a small fraction of all potassium on Earth is a radioactive version called potassium-40. That's where the radiation comes from. It's such a well-known consistent amount that scientists coined an actual unofficial unit called the banana equivalent dose to help explain radiation exposure to regular people in numbers that make sense. Remember that chess number from the very start? 10 to the 120th power, bigger than every atom in the universe combined. Now picture this. You could stack up every banana ever grown on Earth, measure every trace of radiation off every single one, and you still wouldn't get anywhere close to touching a number that size. Some scales just aren't built for human brains. Let's switch gears completely. Wombats. Sweet, chunky, slow-moving Australian animals, and they are the only animal on Earth known to produce cube-shaped droppings. Not round, not oval, actual cubes with defined corners and flat sides, like tiny dice. Nobody believes this the first time they hear it, but it's been documented and studied for real. Here's how it actually happens. A wombat's intestine has stretchy sections and stiffer sections that squeeze the waste unevenly as it moves through, and that uneven pressure molds it into cube shapes right before it comes out. Scientists think it's evolution's way of stopping the droppings from rolling away, so wombats can stack them up to mark territory that other wombats can actually see. Real quick, before we keep going, if you're the kind of person who likes knowing stuff nobody else at the table knows, this is kind of my whole thing. I do this most days. No pressure, just figured I'd mention it while we're mid-conversation. Now let's keep going, because we're only about a third of the way through this list. Here's one that sounds fake but is documented in actual military records. The shortest war in recorded history didn't even last an hour. 2 countries went from peace to full combat to a complete surrender in less time than it takes to watch a sitcom episode. No years of fighting, no long siege, just minutes, and then it was already over. It's called the Anglo-Zanzibar War, fought in 1896 between Britain and the Sultanate of Zanzibar. It started at 9 in the morning and the Sultanate had formally surrendered by around 9:38. 38 minutes start to finish, cannons included. Some historians argue it might have been closer to 40, but either way, most wars don't even finish their opening speeches that fast. Switching gears again, and this one messes with your sense of time more than almost anything else on this list. Sharks are older than trees, not a little older, tens of millions of years older. Sharks were already fully formed, swimming predators cruising around Earth's oceans before a single tree had ever grown out of the ground. Let's put real numbers on it. Sharks show up in the fossil record around 450 million years ago. Trees, actual trees with trunks and bark, don't show up until roughly 350 to 390 million years ago. That's a gap of somewhere around 60 to 100 million years where sharks had the planet's oceans and there wasn't a single forest anywhere on Earth. And sharks didn't just show up early, they stuck around through everything. They survived at least 4, maybe 5 mass extinction events, including the one 66 million years ago that wiped out the dinosaurs completely. Entire dominant species got erased off the planet more than once, and sharks just kept swimming through every single one of those resets. Think about that for a second. Empires collapse in centuries, species vanish in a single bad decade. Sharks just kept doing their thing through 450 million years of chaos. Nature doesn't care about our timelines. It's got its own, and it's a lot longer than anything we build. Okay, this next one breaks physics logic in your head a little. Under the right conditions, hot water can actually freeze faster than cold water. Not sometimes as a fluke. It's been observed and recorded enough times that it has its own official name. It sounds completely backwards because intuitively hot should need more time to cool down first, and yet it's called the Mpemba effect, named after a Tanzanian student who noticed it while making ice cream in the 1960s and refused to let scientists brush him off. And here's the wild part. Decades later, researchers still don't fully agree on why it happens. There are theories about evaporation, dissolved gases, convection currents, but no single answer everyone accepts yet. Let's go inside your own body for this next one. Your stomach is currently in the middle of tearing itself down and rebuilding itself, on a loop, every few days. The lining that keeps your stomach from digesting itself gets replaced constantly, because the environment in there is so brutal that the tissue simply can't survive much longer than that without renewal. And here's why it needs to be brutal. Your stomach acid is strong enough that, given enough time, it can actually dissolve metal. We're talking a pH low enough to eat through things like zinc. Your body is walking around with a corrosive substance in its core 24 hours a day, and the only reason you're fine is that lining rebuilding itself nonstop. Here's a random one that always gets people. Scotland's official national animal isn't a stag, isn't an eagle, it's the unicorn. Not as a joke, not as a mascot. It's genuinely, officially recognized as the national animal of Scotland, and it's been tied to the country for hundreds of years, showing up on royal symbols and coats of arms. The reasoning goes back to old heraldry. In Celtic mythology, the unicorn stood for purity and untamable power, supposedly so wild it could only be tamed by a virgin, and so proud it would rather die than be captured at all. Scottish kings loved that symbolism, and old heraldry also framed the unicorn as the natural enemy of the lion, England's own symbol. It's funny. A mythical creature that never existed became a legally recognized national symbol, official paperwork and all. Kind of like that chess number from earlier. 10 to the 120th power of possible games, more than every atom in the universe, and exists purely as math. Nothing physical about it at all. Some of the realest things on record were never actually real. New continent, new fact. The Eiffel Tower actually gets taller in the summer, not metaphorically, not because of paint or renovation. The physical structure of the tower grows in height every single summer and then shrinks back down once it cools off, all because of what heat does to the iron it's built from. It's basic thermal expansion, but at a scale that actually matters. Iron expands when it heats up, and on a structure that tall, made almost entirely of iron, that expansion adds up to something you can actually measure, up to about 15 centimeters, roughly 6 inches, of extra height on a hot summer day compared to a cold winter one. Let that sink in. One of the most photographed structures on the planet is quietly breathing in and out with the seasons, and almost nobody looking up at it even notices. Heat doesn't need permission to reshape something that big. It just does it, silently, every single year. Here's one that sounds like a joke, but genuinely isn't. You share a surprising amount of your DNA with a banana. Not a little, not a rounding error. A real measurable chunk of your genetic code lines up with the genetic code of a piece of fruit hanging in a grocery store, which honestly should bother us more than it does. Scientists estimate the overlap at somewhere around 60%. That doesn't mean you're 60% banana. It means a lot of the basic biological machinery, the stuff that keeps cells alive and dividing correctly, is so ancient and so fundamental that it shows up in both of us. Bananas and humans branched off the same tree of life a very, very long time ago. Let's go from the smallest scale to the biggest one we've got. Voyager 1. It's a spacecraft, and it is, right now, the single farthest thing humanity has ever sent anywhere. It's left our solar neighborhood entirely and is currently drifting through interstellar space, further from home than anything we've ever built. Voyager 1 launched in 1977, which means it's been flying for roughly 5 decades, and it still, to this day, sends signals back to Earth. A radio message traveling at the speed of light now takes over 22 hours just to reach us from where it is. We built something in the 70s that's still talking to us from outside the solar system. Okay, this is the one I told you about at the start, the one that actually breaks brains. There's a jellyfish that can reverse its own aging, not slow it down, not resist it a little, reverse it completely, going backwards through its own life cycle and starting over as a baby version of itself, again and again, essentially never dying of old age. It's called Turritopsis dohrnii, sometimes nicknamed the immortal jellyfish, and here's the actual mechanism. When it's stressed, injured, or starving, its cells can transform back into an earlier stage of life called a polyp, basically hitting a biological reset button. Cells that were already specialized revert and reorganize into a younger form, and the whole life cycle just starts over from there. Scientists officially describe it as biologically immortal, which is a real term, not a nickname someone made up for clicks. That doesn't mean it can't die. It still gets eaten, still gets sick, still gets caught in currents it can't survive. But baseline old age, the thing that eventually kills every single one of us, for this one creature, it's basically optional. Real quick, pump the brakes because this one is going to sit weird in your chest. Somewhere in the ocean right now floats a creature that never has to die of old age. Not maybe, not metaphorically, actually never. But here's the asterisk, that does not mean it cannot die at all. Hold that thought. We are circling back to it before we are done tonight. Think back to Voyager, the probe I told you about earlier, flying since 1977 and now over 15 billion miles from home. It only moves one direction, forward, aging further into the dark every second. Now flip that. That same ocean creature does the opposite. It loops backward through its own timeline, resetting itself again and again, going nowhere and everywhere at once. 15 facts deep now, and if you are honest, your idea of normal probably took a beating tonight. Normal was never really a fixed thing. It was just the edge of what you happen to already know. Every single one of these facts was sitting there the whole time, true, documented, real, just outside the radius of what most people bothered to look up. Normal is just unexamined. Remember how we started tonight with that chess number, a 1 followed by more than 120 zeros, more possible games than atoms in the entire observable universe. That number was not just a cool opener. It was the whole thesis. Reality is bigger and weirder than your brain is built to hold, and every fact since then has been proving that same point from a different angle. And that is the part that gets me every time. Every single fact on this list sounded made up. Every one of them had that little voice in your head going, no way, he is exaggerating. And every single time, the receipts were sitting right there. Peer-reviewed papers, NASA logs, marine biology journals. Nobody had to stretch the truth tonight. The truth was already stretching itself. And here's the part that keeps me up. We just covered space probes, ocean creatures, and numbers bigger than the universe. But you do not have to leave your own kitchen to find something unbelievable. The wood in your table, the bacteria on your phone screen, the way your own eyes trick your brain every second, all of it is stranger than fiction, hiding in plain sight, ignored. Okay, deep breath, because we're about to land on the last one, and I've been saving it on purpose. Everything else tonight was a warm-up. Big numbers, distant probes, strange biology, all of it was pointing at one single fact that ties the entire video together. This is the one I open with when people ask me what my favorite fact in the world actually is. So here it is. It is called Turritopsis dornii, the immortal jellyfish, smaller than your pinky nail, and it is the only known animal on Earth that can beat death itself. When it is injured, sick, or just old, it does not die. It cells reverse course, transdifferentiation they call it, and the fully grown jellyfish collapses back into a baby polyp stage and starts its whole life over. Age just resets to 0, on command, indefinitely. Sit with that for a second. Somewhere in the ocean right now there could be a jellyfish that has been resetting itself since before your grandparents were born. Not surviving, resetting. No wrinkles, no decline, no biological clock ticking down. Scientists have watched it do this in labs over and over with no limit found yet. We are talking about a creature that, left alone, has no expiration date built into its body at all. And maybe that is the real thing all 15 of these facts were whispering the whole time. We spend our whole lives assuming we understand the rules, how big things get, how far things travel, how long things last, and every single time reality quietly says, not even close. The jellyfish just makes it personal. It is not a fact about the ocean. It is a fact about how small our imagination actually is. So no neat little bow on this one, no life lesson tacked onto the end. Just this. Right now, tonight, while you are watching this, there is a jellyfish out there quietly doing what it has always done, undoing its own aging, like it is nothing, like it is normal, like death is optional, if you are built a certain way. That is just true. It has been true this whole time, whether we were paying attention or not. All right, little bro, that is 15 for you. Straight, no filter, no fluff. Some of them are going to sit in the back of your head for weeks. That jellyfish especially. I still think about it randomly in the middle of the day. That is kind of the whole point of doing this with you. Not just facts, but stuff that actually changes how you see a random Tuesday afternoon. Anyway, that is the list. That is all 15, and I am glad you sat through the whole thing with me instead of scrolling off after the first one like everybody else does. I will be back with another one of these soon. Same time, same energy. Until then, go find something weird in your own everyday life and impress somebody with it. Catch you in the next one.